Hello and welcome back. This is episode 97. I'm just chuckling to myself because just as we pressed record, Brett said, "Right, take it, Victoria," and I got all kinds of inappropriate sort of like this is why there's too much pornography in the world. We are going to talk about a life well lived, and Victoria is going to pronounce something for us. Go ahead.
Cinco de Mayo se conmemora la victoria del ejército mexicano sobre Francia en la batalla de Puebla 1862. There we go.
Awesome. That was fantastic.
We are just going to have to hope that passes through YouTube's censoring. None of us have a clue what Victoria just said.
Yes, I do. I know what she said. What she said.
Out of it. What did she say?
She said Cinco de Mayo. It's the celebration of the day of the battle of the French thing or whatever on the day that it happened. It's like an independence of a specific region in Mexico. Is the battle.
I think you Googled that. In any case,
That is very pessimistic of you, and I'm slightly offended that you're insulting my intelligence to such a degree.
Yeah. Just because she has Google Translate on.
Do not.
Who knows what goes on behind people's doors? We don't know. And that isn't actually one of the things we're going to talk about in this episode. Who knows? You know the way this rolls. But we are going to talk about lives well lived. And obviously that is going to mean something different to each and every one of us. So what does it mean to live life well?
I find this question to be really deep on many levels, right? And it's a super subjective question as well. We each have our own idea of what that might mean. When it was first asked to me, I instantly found myself at the end of my days, right? Like on a deathbed kind of, or like getting close to the end and reviewing my life and asking myself, did you live a well-lived life? And what would be required for me to have an answer to feel like I did is what it came to. And I need a little more time to process it exactly, but instantly it was about making sure that the people closest to me and who I love the most are around me. And also I can leave them in a way where they know just how special and important they were to me. That to me, in general, would be proof of a well-lived life, that I showed up the way that I wanted to and left that impact on people. But I'm sure there's more to it. I find it interesting that it's Cinco de Mayo today and we're talking about this because how many people are out there and how many of us equate celebrations and parties as the only thing that shows proof of a well-lived life. I don't rest just only on that. I think the paradox of the celebration and the joy and the love, but also the hardship and the devastation and the grief that we feel all together makes a really rounded out, well-lived life, because you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting, Erica, what you said there, because we could think of a very superficial way. How well did we live our life by we had a good life, we had loads of money, we partied. But for me, it's the same. How did I turn up for other people? I think this is which determines for me how well I think I lived my life. And it just reminded me of a little story somebody just told me a few weeks ago, which made me really, really sad. She works in a nursing home, and this old man died, and he was not an easy person to deal with. And after he died, nobody claimed the body. Nobody wanted to know. There was no family. He was in a funeral home, I think, for almost 6 weeks on ice, which sounds horrible. So sorry if I trigger anyone, but nobody wanted to know. So the nurses went out of their way to see if there's anyone in town, because they started collecting money for his funeral because nobody wanted to bury him. And they knew that he had a good time himself. He talked about the pubs he was in, and when they went and checked, nobody wanted to know him. They said he came in, he promised us he would pay, he ran up bills behind the bar. We have no interest. And in the end, it was the nurses in the nursing home who paid for his funeral. And it was only the carers there at his funeral. And it made me really sad.
This makes me think of that the quality and caliber of our lives is dependent on the quality and caliber of our relationships. And we've talked a lot recently about relationships, but Eric and I are both big on pre-planning our deaths, leaving instructions behind for people, and also that memento mori, by recognizing our finiteness, our mortality, it brings more to what you're currently living.
He's gone.
And
there
I really get
What
the
happened?
sadness of that.
I don't know where he
But
went.
then there's a part of me that
talk
thinks,
about cliffhanger.
we all
it
know that
brings
we,
more.
unless we are completely
All right,
delusional
I'm sure he'll be
and
back. So
in
let's just
denial,
carry that on.
we all know
Yeah.
we're going to leave. So at some
But
point,
it's funny.
while we've got our reckoning and
he shared with you,
income
Erica.
and stuff,
Was this it?
maybe we should make
That was not it.
preparedness for that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, all right, let's just continue, I guess, on what that means.
Yeah, it's such a heavy, it's actually a funny moment in a really heavy conversation. We're talking about death and being finite, and then Alec just disappears. But that can happen anytime for real.
Exactly.
I mean, we take life for so granted that, we will be fine.
Yeah,
So
this was
when somebody leaves like that, right? If you were to leave like that, what
Hello?
would you want people to think? If that was it, how would you feel your life? What makes it complete? That's the question, right? That's today's topic?
Well, a well-lived life. Yeah. So that's a great question, right? So, because none of us know when the end is the end, right? So it could happen just as abruptly as what this just was like. So if that happens, and I was, on the other side asked, do you feel like you lived a well-lived life? To me, it's like I said before, how other people feel in my app, like how I made them feel and how I showed up for them. But taking it one step further, for me, a well-lived life would also include how engaged I am with my own body, even like my health. Am I using my body to its fullest potential, right? I'm given this body. It's a vehicle for me to accomplish a lot of things. Am I using it the way that it's intended to, or am I taking it for granted? Also, do I have am I organized enough that somebody could come and say, shit, she left really quickly, but look at how everything's put together here. Her life was organized in a way that makes me feel like she was intentional with what she was doing. That's what, for me, it would mean.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about any of you? Like, I know it's a question that, like, when you first asked it, it feels overwhelming. That's how it felt for me.
Big.
Yes.
But what's your initial response?
For me, it's practical way, or the process itself is the individual journey, but also the importance of collectiveness, right? We were talking about that we have come to the point where we just think about life very individually, and it is individual, but collectiveness is very important. So trying to find the balance on a daily basis. And now if I think about if I have a well-lived life until today, it's about, I ask myself this question basically: if I die today, I'll die happily. And I try to think every time that I encounter someone, this might be the last time that I see this person. So I bring my very best. And that means that the whole thing, right? Even though with that frustration, but I try to do that a lot with friends, with family. Maybe this is the last time that I see you. So then I do this check on a daily basis. For me, that's a life well lived if I check on it on a daily basis, knowing this.
It's a hard question. You know, I mean, I feel like I still have work to do here on my journey. Um, I look forward to inspiring and empowering others as well as myself. Um, there's just a lot there, so I wouldn't know how to put it to words so quick. I don't think it's something that I can put to words, like flow it right out, right? Because it grows as my life does,
Hmm.
right? And I start growing into who I am and what I bring to the table. And as I grow in that, I bring more, and it just gets bigger and more vast, and you know. But it's about sharing. It's about offering um, what I know, what I have to others, right? Whether they're close or not close, and it's for 5 minutes, or it's the inspiring words that gets you past your hard time, or gives you the direction when you didn't have it, or like stuff like that. I don't know how to put it to words, but that's the words I'm finding in the moment. It's supportive because that's what I look to do for myself. I look to other people for the same inspiration and motivation and different um, pieces. I'm not finding the right words, but and that's what I want to offer out, especially to the youth, the younger. So as I age out, I want to offer my what I know to people who are open to receive it, so that if they can hold that and understand that, then their growth from that moment forward grows beyond where I was able to get to. Right. So if there's a way of me delivering it in a package where it's there, and take, lay out the feast and take what you need, and they take what they need to get further than where they would have been before that. And he's back.
He's back from the dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have Alec Wells
Was that intended?
back with us.
I feel like Gerard Egan, where he too was believed to be dead and came back to life. Thank you for carrying on in my absence. I hope I wasn't too badly missed.
Well, you were abruptly taken from us, which helped us to spin off of in face of this question, what's a well-lived life, that at any moment any of us could quickly just not be here. And what does it really mean for us? And we're all sort of just jumping ideas off each other, because the question is sort of overwhelming when you're handed it, right? So the initial thoughts come, more thoughts are coming as I'm listening to people. And for me, I guess well-lived would be really just getting the most out of every day. Whatever that means. And I don't mean it in a way that every day has to be filled with rainbows and unicorns and I'm going out and I'm accomplishing all this. I could be in the dark side of the soul right here, and allowing myself to be there and acknowledging whatever emotions have to be present in order for me to feel that is also pretty well lived, right? Because we're not one dimensional.
I love that.
People. We're human beings with lots of parts.
Sorry, Victoria, you may want to unmute yourself again. There's a lot of background noise, so I muted you briefly. I think what you're talking about, Erica, is a little bit like the Four Agreements, isn't it? It's you being intentional, being impeccable with your word, which means being impeccable with your thoughts and your actions. And if you're doing your best, whatever your best looks like, if you know that the important things are the way you show up for people, the way that you commit and have consistency to the relationships, the people that are close to you, then that ultimately will be a life well lived. My ex-mother-in-law, bless her, departed now, taught me this in the most human way, because she was an absolute battery for the people around her. She was one of those people upon whom most of the family dynamic depended. Not depended, because it continues. They're a very close-knit family, but she was the center of it. She was the bedrock. She made me feel part of that relationship, that family dynamic, in a way I'd never experienced. You know this in particular, Erica, but she was the woman that I chose to call mum, and she showed me something about what it is to be that kind of matriarchal figure who everybody goes to. She was never without a smile. She's got the most amazing grandchildren. But did she do anything extraordinary in her life? She had jobs where she was liked and respected, holidays where she wanted to visit, with particularly in her retirement. But if you were creating a hall of fame, I pretty much guarantee her kind of achievements would be overlooked by whoever makes these decisions. And yet she was the most important person in so many people's lives. Even she died on leap year, so 29th of February, 2 years ago now. And even that seems remarkable to us. It's commented upon that Jackie would have left on the day where we only actually have that day every 4 years. I mean, of course, we still mark it, but that's the kind of impact. And that says more to me about a life well lived than, having a portrait in a Hall of Fame would, I think.
I agree 100%. I think it's more about the way you leave the people that you've come in contact with, right? The important people, the people that you value, that are part of your fabric of your life, how you leave them feeling at the end of yours is proof for me. I mean, and all the other stuff is just extra added icing on the cake if you accomplish something great, or you leave something larger than yourself. But that ripple effect in and of itself, I think, is larger than any one person.
It's leaving a legacy, and I think leaving a legacy is often misunderstood when people hear that. Out of the personal growth, they think, oh, leaving a legacy, become famous, whatever. It's not about that at all. It's being remembered for the person you were. And maybe some listener people won't care how they're remembered, but for me it's important. I mean, to be honest, if I die tomorrow and people have a dance, yippee, I would not feel I lived my life well. Right? For me, it's really about having impact, having connection. That's what's important to me, and I think that's maybe what it comes down to. What's important to us? What do we see as a life well lived? Somebody might say, Gabby, I don't care. I want to be famous and be remembered in 1,000 years' time because people still read my books. I couldn't care less. I really couldn't care less, because 2 generations in, people don't know who I was. They don't remember me, right? We look at all these famous people who said famous things 1,000 years ago. We don't know what they were like in real life. To be honest, they could have been the biggest a blah 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 dot 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 ever in their personal lives. That's you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So for me, it's important for the people who still know me. The rest doesn't matter.
And when we have those conversations about healthy reverence for death, we talk about the 3 deaths. The moment of your last exhalation, the moment of your interment, cremation, and the last time your name is whispered off somebody's lips or spoken off somebody's lips. And if you take that, Jack is still alive and with us, and she's just been commemorated here in front of our international audience. That would probably bring her more joy, like you just said, to know that she's still remembered and spoken of kindly than anything else at all. And, by the time her grandchildren have stopped whispering her name, then maybe that will be the final time. And maybe that's how we're supposed to roll, like 3-4 generations memory of a person. I don't know.
I think it's important. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Gav.
Yeah, but then every family has a family culture. So I don't think in that example, for example, she will never be remembered. Maybe not as a person, maybe not with her name, but whatever she did for the family, she was a role model. Probably her daughter picked it up. She might give it to the grandchildren to their grandchildren, and so on. So living a good life, what she did may has created a family culture which will be trickling down 10 generations.
Yeah, I think it's important. Well, it's important for me to include, like, we're talking a lot about living a well-lived life, how other people, right? Like how I've made other people feel and how they continue to talk about me, my memory, things I did or said, whatever. Equally as important, and what equals out to a well-lived life for me, is making the most of what I've been given, right? We're all here for a reason, whatever that is. Who knows? Some of us come to it sooner than others. But I think we owe it to ourselves to live a well-lived life that includes reaching your potential in whatever that is, fully stepping into your greatness and your strengths, and using your body to its ultimate potential, using your mind to its ultimate potential, opening your heart for its to its ultimate potential. That, to me, doing all of that is what living a well-lived life is. Like being willing to be vulnerable and taking a risk so that you can give just as much as you get.
Which makes me think about...
So now that I've said all that, no, go ahead.
It just makes me think about becoming first, doing second, and being well becoming, and the other way around. So first the ownership of that personal growth, and then doing. That's a well life lived, at least for me. First, truly being in that process.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that I've said all of that, it sounded great. The question becomes, how the fuck do you do that now? Okay, great. So that is what I've identified as what I think living a well-lived life is. And I know that once I identify what all that means, it's a direct line to what my values are, so that I can change my behavior to align with my values is the ultimate goal, right? So that I'm congruent and everything comes with ease. Nothing is I don't have to think about it. It just is. So now the task is doing that.
So conversely, if you've come to this awareness, you accept it, etc., and your intention is not to do what you've just described, does that equate to a life not well lived, Ben?
I think it would only equate to a life not well lived if the desire to get there ceases to exist, right? If I stop aspiring to getting there, that to me is not a well lived life. The process and the journey of aspiring to it and wanting to get it ultimately makes a life well lived, right? Because I'm searching and I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm seeking it out. Once that stops, then forget it. That to me, that's like, why bother? That's not a well lived life. That's just, you're just existing.
Yeah, so the intention and the pursuit, even if it doesn't quite turn out as you perhaps visualized it or imagined it, wouldn't prevent you from saying on your, with your final breath, that was a life well lived. But giving up on the dream or the aspiration, maybe settling for a life of mundanity, that would equate to losing that attempt at a life well lived.
Yeah, I think the point is in the intention, isn't it? Because it will mean something different to everybody here and to everybody who's listening. What's a life well lived? And with my example I gave earlier, maybe that was the intention of the man, to be forgotten and hated and not liked, and nobody wants to. If that was his intention, then he lived his life well because he achieved it. The question is, are we living in full awareness and with intention? And I think this is the point. Because if we just go to the motions for 30 years, in the job and out the job and and the motions and whatever we need to do, and doing what we think other people expect us to do, and buying into the social norms, even though they don't maybe necessarily align with our own values and all that, and we just literally, with no intention, with no awareness, just go to the motions like a machine. Is that you could be well off in a nice house with a nice car, all the boxes ticked, but are you living a life well lived?
It's a question worth asking, I think, every single day. Like, how am I going to choose to live a well lived day? Because our life is just a series of our days, right? So on a day by day basis, how can I live the best way? A well lived life today. What does that mean?
Victoria, you are well supporting this. Unmute, tell us.
No, I'm just nodding because I agree with it. I love what Erica said earlier about the duality. It's on a daily basis. It's literally on a daily basis. That's why I do the exercise of thinking, if I die today before going to bed, would I be happy? If I have to send a text or anything, I'll do it just for feeling okay with it. And I feel that nowadays, today, I'm having a well-lived life with old, because I'm able to have a dark day and really feeling the lowest and embracing it because I feel alive. It doesn't mean it's easy, but then I'm like, I'm alive, and then I can cry and I can be in this dark place and I can be complaining about everything, but I'm like, I'm alive. And then I know it will pass. And I am living like that with that awareness. So to me, that's a well life lived, of course, with the conscious of growing and taking actions toward it. So, yeah.
In presence, like embodying, like truly being there in the moment. Like I love that word presence because it's a gift, right? But it's about really being here, embodied. So even if it's just sitting around and you're not getting much done, but the presence that you're actually taking the time and sitting around and making the choices and either learning from those choices, maybe it's not what you want to do, or maybe, you know what, right now, this is what I want to do. and just being present to it instead of being on autopilot and not aware. So that presence of being is big for me.
Yeah, you just brought something to me as a real gift, and I apologise for the dreadful pun. But I've had some homework to do for a certification course that I'm taking at the moment, and it was basically to ask people what they truly value about me. And one of the things that has been a theme through all of the feedback is your presence. You know, I really feel like you are part of our relationship. It's not something that's oh yeah, I've got to deal with that as well. And that has been a gift to me. I didn't realize, it was an intention. I want to be authentic and congruent in all of our, and you people are part of it, our relationships, and I want the consistency. But hearing that I've achieved that was humbling, to say the least. And I think if you have people around you who you share that with, people who are consciously aware and they are able to share that degree of connection through the hard moments, through the laughter, through the tears, then you've been given, not only have you lived, but you've also been gifted a life that has been well lived.
So my final thought on this is each of us are capable of a whole lot more than we might think we are, right? We've been given a body, we've been given a life. To live a well-lived life is to step into that potential and take the risks that we might need to take in any area, whatever that means. But the real final thought is take a minute to be honest with yourself about the answer to that question. Are you living a well-lived life now? What does it mean for you to be able to look back on that at the end of your days? And if the answer is no in any way, don't beat yourself up about it, but use that as information and to identify where you could tweak things a little bit so that that answer becomes a yes, a full yes.
And I think that is probably where we will leave you to reflect, dear listeners. We will catch you on another one.